Go for it.
And we're off. Cool.
All
Well,
right.
that, thanks again for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you today, man. You've done a lot. Looking through your resume, oh sorry, on IMDb, you got some like really cool projects. I'm just curious. So it looks like, from what I can see, your breakout role as a screenwriter was with the big hit, starring Mark Wahlberg. How'd you break into Hollywood that way with that script?
Well, there was actually a script before that called Blunt Force, and my roommate was dating this guy who was putting a project together for Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls before he passed on, and he needed a script, on the cheap. So my roommate said, "Hey, I live with a writer. Maybe he can do it for." So the guy, threw me $2,000, and I wrote a script called Blunt Force, and that script kind of like went. Now this is, the mid early '90s,
Yeah.
and that went the '90s equivalent of going viral uh, before going viral was a thing. So that script was all over Hollywood. Everybody was like, "Oh man, who's the writer? Who's the guy that did this?" And at that particular time, the industry was in what was called the spec market boom. So spec scripts were like, were all the rage. This was like just after Tarantino. So everybody was just kind of like riding the Tarantino bandwagon. And that's how I got in. It was like this little fun little crime thriller thing that I wrote. Everybody loved, everybody wanted. And so afterwards, I met my manager, a guy named Warren Zide, and he signed me. And then I signed with CAA after that. So I signed with like the biggest agency in town. It was crazy. It was just this, overnight, you know, thing that happened. And so
Cool.
they said, "We need another script from you right away." Yeah, and my manager, told me we need a script right away, and I was working in art department. I was doing swing gang work for low budget films for like Roger Corman's studio. I was like, "Hey man, I need to work. I got to pay the bills." My manager said, "Look, I'll pay your rent. I'll pay your bills for the month. Get me another script right away." And
Oh, that's a good deal.
that's what happened. And I wrote the big hit.
That's
And
cool.
it was that kind of rags to riches kind of thing. Only it took about 5 years since I moved to Hollywood to go from. And then before that, man, better part of my young life.
That's so
So
exciting. Actually, I see behind you on the camera now. For those listening to the audio podcast, you would see what I'm seeing. But you've got framed. What is that? Is that it's a variety magazine with the big hit on it?
that was the article that came out when the big hit released, and it went number one for that week. And so for one glorious week, I had the number one film in all the country.
That's so exciting. Hey, so with the big hit, something that I would say it loosely has in common with a project like Dragon Ball Evolution is you're attached to the screenwriter and not a director. Now, obviously, these are very different films, but what's that like, delivering a script to a director or a studio, and then it's like out of your hands, and then like you see the final product, and like, for example, with the big hit, was there a lot of changes? Was there a lot of difference? Like, what's that experience like
Yeah,
for
there
you?
was. When Kirk Wong came on, uh, the director, plus he was one of John Woo's guys, and he was famous for directing a Police Story with Jackie Chan. So when
Police
he
Story.
came, Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
God, dude. I love that movie. Police Story
yeah,
1 and 2 especially. Oh my
yeah.
God, man. I've mentioned that so many times in this podcast. Such an underrated martial arts film.
Oh man, it was classic. It was classic. So
So
when
good.
Kirk came on board, I was like, oh man, we're in good hands here. And so the process was relatively painless, but it was the script that I wrote was kind of different from the film that they made. The script that I wrote was actually more like a Coen Brothers. It was much darker comedy. It was,
Mm.
very a lot of gallows humor, and you know, there's a scene, where he kidnaps the girl, the Asian girl, and threatens to, I'll cut off her finger and send it to you and stuff. So in the
Oh
script,
my
he
God.
actually cuts her finger off. So,
Uh,
so so he was quite an anti-hero in the thing. So it was so that
wow.
we lightened that up a whole lot and
Mm.
made it, more, accessible, a little more mainstream, a little more fun. So I don't know. It probably wouldn't have did as well if it remained my original vision. And
Wow.
so, but it
Can I
definitely would have
ask?
been a darker film. Hmm?
Yeah, cool. Can I ask, like, when you have a film like that, what is the process like when, like, are you once you deliver the script off, are you still being consulted along the way, or is it like completely out of your hands with the director? Just in the Hollywood circle on that level, what's happening with that process?
Well, it's different, from different films. Like with Big Hit, I was hands on all the way till production.
Cool.
As soon as it went to production, then I think I was on set maybe 3 days. I spent 3 days on set, and then I was off on to another project. But with Dragon Ball Evolution, I turned in the script, and they didn't make it until, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 years after I turned it in. And I was not invited to set or anything. I didn't consult with the
Uh,
director or anybody, so it was completely hands off on that project.
Yeah, we'll
So,
definitely get into that later. But let's stay on to the big hit because it's a movie so nice. I want to pour milk on it and make it part of my complete breakfast, as, as you might say. Uh,
yeah,
for
yeah,
those who've
that
seen the
was
movie, that's a quote.
yeah, that was it was. I had all kind of little crazy quips for those guys to use.
You had a few good ones
That
in
was,
there. I liked it.
there's a few,
Can
yeah,
I?
and then oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. So for those who haven't seen the film, there's a running joke about. Oh, this is so 90s, but there's basically a Blockbuster type rental video service, and this guy keeps calling Mark Wahlberg about King Kong Lives. You got to return your copy of King Kong Lives. Why King Kong Lives of all films?
Well, because we couldn't get the rights for Popeye. It was the Robin Williams
Yeah, yeah.
version of Popeye. That was the original script. We couldn't get the rights for that, and so we had to get what we could take, and we wound up with King Kong Lives, and
Wow. I love that it's
that
not King Kong, it's King Kong Lives. It's so specific, which I think is really
well,
good
that
for
was the thing
comedy.
that became
Yeah.
that line where there's a line in the outtakes. I don't know if it was outtaken where Lou Diamond says, "Man, that's a they're talking about sequels and porn films and and he said, well, King Kong Lives was a sequel to a remake." I didn't
Wow.
write that line. I think Lou came up with that line. So
And
yeah.
don't get me started on Popeye. So my parents are Maltese. They immigrated to Australia like way back, and Popeye, from my knowledge, was filmed in Malta, which is a tiny island that is so small on the map. The word Malta is bigger than the country, and they because they filmed Popeye there. It's still like they call it a tourist attraction. They got Popeye Village. And so as a kid growing up, my mom and dad would be like, Malta, they filmed the Popeye movie there. And I'm just like, I didn't know there was a Popeye movie, Mom. My mom grew up loving that movie. But hey, you mentioned the sequel. You mentioned a sequel to The Big Hit. And I'm pretty sure I saw you say somewhere that you wrote a sequel. Is that correct?
I did. I did write a sequel called The Rat Pack. But the problem is that there were so many producers involved with the project that to get it made was just not financially feasible at the time. They just said, like half the budget would go to paying off producers. So I just took and changed the names, and made it its own thing. But tonally, it's the same type of film.
Cool.
It's a perfect sequel without it being a sequel. So
I get
we'll
you.
see
Yeah.
whatever happens. That one day maybe. The Big Hit seems to be having a bit of a resurgence with a lot of people. A lot of people are
Well, I just watched it the other day. I was surprised how much it holds up, because I think a lot of, especially 90s comedy, does not age well. Surprisingly, a lot of it, I think, does, especially because I think it's mostly probably because there's a lot of physical humor in it. Like the scene where the kidnapped girl's hopping around the house and Mark Wahlberg's got to like hide her from the family and stuff. I thought like that scene aged really well, because, I guess outside of the idea that it's a kidnapped woman, but it's a kidnapping film. It that works for it. So yeah, I was surprised with that. And that last action scene, the fight scene in the video store was pretty awesome. It was very Jackie Chan-esque with the using of the objects around him, and like I think there was like a ladder and stuff. That was pretty cool. You mentioned
the guy. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah. No. I mean, like Kirk. I mean, he worked with Jackie, and he bought a lot of the stunt team were Hong Kong guys. So that worked with Jackie too. So they came in and brought in they added that Hong Kong flavor to it, that Jackie Chan kind of a flavor to it. And Mark and Lou did a lot of their own stunts too. So yeah, that was a fun little fight scene.
That was awesome.
Pretty ridiculous, but fun.
Look, the movie, I think, allows itself to be ridiculous. Like, it sets up the world pretty well and establishes it that crazy things can happen here. So I think the placement of everything going on and the tone was pretty well established. So you could do that later. So that was pretty good. Let's move on though. You mentioned earlier about this script you wrote with Biggie Smalls in mind, and it kind of sounds like it got kind of like lost through the Hollywood mix, and not much happened with it. There was another project you were working on, which I was very surprised to hear, was you were doing a Luke Cage movie with Marvel with, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tyrese Gibson attached as Luke Cage, and Terrence Howard was the bad guy. What can you tell us about that movie?
Well, that was I had written a feature film version of Luke Cage, and eventually John Singleton came on board to direct, and they were talking to Tyrese and Terrence about, I don't know if any deals were made, but what happened was that wound up getting caught in what we call development hell. It was a classic case of development hell. The script was very popular. It was another one of those must-read scripts all over town that kind of led to, like several other big jobs and stuff. I've written, I mean, truth be told, I wrote tons of scripts. I have oh God, I can't even remember. I have dozens of scripts, all of every studio in town, sitting in vaults, collecting dust that will never, ever be made. You know, so man, it's so one script leads to another. People, oh man, come on, write another, and then I did a ton of script doctoring work on a lot of different movies too. And they'd say, hey, come in and punch up the action in one scene, punch up the dialogue in another scene. So yeah.
When that happens, are you often, because I haven't seen a lot of I rarely see script doctor written on IMDb. Is it usually like a ghostwriting situation where they keep you behind the
Yeah,
scenes?
pretty much. Yeah.
Are you allowed to publicly talk about what projects you've done some punching up on?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think any of them got made. Oh, one of them actually. One of them got made, and it was a pretty bad film. What was it called? It was with Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro.
Hang on. I gotta look this up. Eddie Murphy, Robert De Niro film.
Yeah. And by the time that script got done, there were like probably 10, 15 names.
Showtime. Showtime.
Yeah, Showtime. Yeah, Showtime.
Comedy action. So yeah, you've already established yourself as a comedy action guy with big hit and stuff.
Yeah, that was what they stuck me with. And there were a few other ones I can't even remember. There were some of them I don't even remember. I know there was. I don't know if it's if I'm officially a part of this or not, but I know that there was a script that I did a rewrite on called "Good God." And ultimately it disappeared, and then Bruce Almighty came out, and I'm like, did they turn my script into Bruce Almighty, because the themes were very similar.
Sometimes parallel thinking does happen. Like you think of movies like Dante's Peak and Volcano came out around the same time, and Bug's Life and Ants or whatever. But sometimes projects do transform into other beings, and yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What can you tell me, going back to Luke Cage, is there anything you can tell me about the story that was happened at the time, considering a TV show's come and gone
Luke
since?
Cage story, or the story behind the story?
Oh, the story itself, the script itself. Like, what was about, the themes? Were there any moments that you could share with us?
Well, it pretty much. I followed it was a combination of the classic Luke Cage origin story, and then I mixed a bit of the Max series when they did. It was a Marvel Max, I think it was, and they did Cage, and it was very kind of like, adult oriented, very, very hardcore, very brutal. And then, so I basically used those guidelines and stuff where Luke Cage and Willis Stryker, and his main nemesis is Diamondback. And, so I followed they were friends, they were petty criminals working together, coming up through the underworld. They both meet a girl, Reva. Luke falls in love with him, and Willis, blows up to become this big crime boss, and he wants Reva for himself, and they have this big blow up, and then Stryker winds up killing Reva and pinning the murder on Luke, and then Luke goes to prison, and they use him for an experiment. He becomes Luke Cage, busts out, returns to Harlem, where he sets up his hero for hire business.
Oh, cool!
And he's pretty much an anti-hero that becomes a hero. So he's
Well, that seems pretty comics accurate, I would say.
Yeah, that was the main thing though. I wanted to focus on that. He did all his heroics for a price. He was a mercenary.
What's your take on the Netflix series?
Well, it was I enjoyed their take on it, because the showrunner, I know, Cheo, we actually we pitched a project together for Disney a long time ago. So, I know Cheo's vision was, a little bit different. They wanted Luke to be a little bit more heroic, kind of
Mm.
like, I kind of, Marcus, he was almost like a urban black Captain America, hood Captain America, if you can. He's a bit of a Boy Scout. He was a good guy compared
Yeah,
to my version of him is
right.
he was a very reluctant hero. He was very jaded and just really didn't give a shit,
When
much about life.
when adapting a project like Luke Cage or Dragon Ball or whatever, let's use Luke Cage for an example. When you're approached or you approach them or you talk to them, are you given like a brief about what they want from the story? And were you given one for Luke Cage, or were they just like, here's the source material, go nuts?
Well, before you have to kind of like pitch your ideas to get the job. Say, hey, there's an open writing assignment for Marvel at the time, and at that time, Avi Arad was running Marvel, and Kevin Feige was just a junior exec there and stuff. I remember
Going way
Kevin
back.
too, yeah, way back, and they said, hey, give us your take. So I just went over the source material. I came up with, my take on it, turned it in if they, and they liked the take, and they hired me. But I was one of several writers that were up for the job.
That's incredible.
Somebody, if you're interested,
Yeah.
you could on YouTube. Somebody did a script reading of Luke Cage. I think it's called Development Hell. I think they were called. And I actually went there. I went to the script reading of it, and
I think I read about this. There was I was at some convention, right? And they were also reading some other scripts, I think. Was that it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
they they uh they have this group, and they do script readings of famous unpredictable scripts.
That's so
I think
cool.
they did Kevin Smith's Superman and
I
Zack
saw one
Snyder's
was
Wonder Woman.
yeah, the Wonder Woman. I think that was Joss Whedon, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
Josh Whedon.
Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
There was George Miller's Justice League, which was going to be shut down under, but
Right, right, right,
it
right.
happens.
Yeah.
So another project of yours that I've seen and really enjoyed is Blood and Bone that you wrote and directed. I didn't realize.
I
Actually,
wasn't credited as a writer on it. I did
oh,
a
weren't you?
director's polish. I rewrote it. I did a director's polish on it, but I
Oh, my
didn't
bad.
credit myself as the writer of it. Basically,
Well,
just for union things. Because if I uh,
yeah,
took credit for writing it, then they would have had to pay my quote, and it would have been
yeah, all the Lego
like
mumbo jumbo. Yeah.
yeah, a bunch of
Well,
legal. So.
well, what about so if that's the case? So how did that script come to you, and what's it like directing someone else's script? Is that
So, well,
that's because you had the opposite end of the stick like a few years before that?
you're right. Well, it was. I mean, the script came to me from Michael Jai White because me and Mike had been friends for a while, and
He's so incredible.
we always. Oh, Mike is cool, man. He's cool. He's a real deal, man, and a funny dude, man. Funny people see him as all big and intimidating and everything, but he is
And he could have played Luke
hilarious.
Cage.
Oh, that's what I mean. That's what we were going for. We kept on saying, man, Mike should be Luke Cage. Yeah,
Oh, so that would have been great.
but
Anyways,
yeah. But
we can
yeah,
dream.
anyway, Mike had this script that he wanted to produce called Blood and Bone, and he was like, "Hey, man, do you want to direct this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, sure." I took a look at the script, and and I asked him. I said, "Do you mind me making a few changes to the script?" He was like, "No, man, no worries." So I got in there and I polished it up, changed a few things around. Um, and kind of crafted it into what it is. So I guess in a sense, it wasn't completely directing somebody else's script. Kind of like I
That's
took
cool.
somebody else's script and turned it into mine. No disrespect to Michael Andrews, who's a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
But that's I mean, that's kind of like how the directors do come in and they put their spit and polish on it. Like the big hit.
Yeah.
The big hit was that it truth be told, it's probably a bit more of Kurt Wong's movie than mine. So it's
Right.
much more of a collaborative. And to that extent, I guess maybe Kurt had a better approach for a more mainstream film as opposed to a dark indie, to the
Yeah.
dark indie script that I wrote. So,
Well,
but yeah, Blood and Bone was, and then just shooting it was just oh man, it was just it was tough, because we had like I think it was 24 days, 24. We had less than a month to
mm,
shoot this thing, and we would like just put together fight scenes. We would come in and say, okay, we got an hour to shoot this fight scene. And fortunately, this was the thing that, made it so good, is that between Mike, myself, we, had connects to some of the top stunt players in the business, stunt fighters and stunt coordinators and choreographers. And so getting those guys together, I mean, it was almost like getting a bunch of jazz musicians together for a jam session. And they would
cool.
get in there and mix it up, So strangely and oddly enough, the fight scenes were the easiest things to shoot. I mean, like really, we'd get in and those guys would do their thing, and all we had to do was just make sure that our cameras were at the right angle, to get the action. And then we also, one of the things that we went in to it saying we're not going to do shaky cam, or we're not going to do a lot of editing. We want to, keep the editing to a minimal, so you get to see all the action. We did much longer takes, and because we had people that were capable of doing it, particularly, the lead and Mike, you don't need to
Oh,
cut
yeah.
him up. That's what you have actors that aren't, that good. You give them choreography and then you break it into pieces, and then, whereas Mike, you just stick the camera at him, and he could go through a whole routine uncut. The guy is that physically gifted. So that's
Wow.
another one of the things that made that movie kind of like a bit of a. Yeah. That's probably out of all the movies that I get requests for sequels, I get like almost every day or every other day somebody DMs me, or when is Blood and Bone 2 coming out, man? We need Blood and Bone, like from all over the world. So it's very, very popular movie. And
Well,
like I said, I
that
don't know. Got to
movie.
talk to Mike about that.
Well, yeah, like I think that movie, it's a really good showcase for Michael J. White, especially like that guy. He can kick. Like when he kicks, his legs just so long. And what you did a really good job of was capturing it all. Like he, uh, like you said, like there was some like long takes. You had wide shots. These are techniques that a lot of directors seem to miss out on. You need to show if the actor can do the stunt, show the actor doing the stunt, which it seems
Absolutely,
obvious, right?
absolutely,
But a
man.
lot of people miss that.
Yeah, it's just a lot of like the bigger mainstream movies just have kind of like this, action routine. And the thing is I know a lot of stunt guys, and I see you know, their choreography reels. When they put together fight scenes and stuff, they shoot them, the way they should be shot. And I mean, and it's like, dude, just shoot what the choreographer shot. Go frame by frame, use all their footage, and you'll have a killer
Yeah.
scene. And I've seen that happen over and over again. I've seen guys put together these fantastic fight scenes, and then somewhere when they shot them, so much of the action and all the coolness, it just got left in the woodwork. I think a lot of it sometimes has to do with the amount of time, and pressure, and things. It's a lot different between setting up a camcorder and getting shots, or taking your cell phone and getting shots here and there. Okay, go for an over with it, and then shooting with a big hairy, camera. So
Can I
I
ask,
think
like, what's the process of designing a fight scene like that? Like, when you get the script, or if you're writing a script, even, are you writing out beat by beat, or are you just going? I'm guessing it's not just and then they fight. And then once you get to the set, like, are you storyboarding beforehand? Are you working with the choreographer, or do you sort of let them take the reins? Can you walk me
well,
through
it kind of like for me.
step-by-step process?
I have a I have a martial arts background. I'm trained in martial arts, all my life. So, but I'm not in shape to get out there and say, hey, do this. So what I do when I'm writing action scenes is what I do is I set the tone and give, an idea of the type of, movements, is it going to be, like crazy, chaotic, or is it going to be smooth and elegant? Is it going to be brutal, or is it going to be slick? So I kind of like set the tone, and then I give it to, to the fight team, and they take that and then they do their thing, you know. So that's kind of like, that's the approach that I use. When you're working with really talented people, you give them an idea,
Yeah.
you give them, and then let them go, let them, work their magic. And, most of the time you get great stuff.
That's cool. Thanks for
You got to
that
trust your fight
insight to
scene.
that. Yeah. One more question about Blood and Bone. Actually, real quick, the way I didn't realize I'd seen it before until I'd seen, there's a lot of like things on YouTube, like best of fight scene compilations and stuff. And that two at a time fight scene, I'd actually seen a few places. And when I was watching the movie, it's like, I saw it just the other week, and like, oh my God, I think I borrowed this out from like a Blockbuster or something like 10 years ago. So it was such a trip. But that's what happens when you have Michael Jai White in your film. He's one of those actors you just need to go through his filmography and see all the cool films he's worked on. But that character, I forget his name, the one that says two at a time, the one that's sort of like
Pinball.
Pinball,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. I knew it.
Dante Bosco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong here, but watching The Big Hit and hearing his dialogue, I think I could hear your voice coming through a little bit, the comedy side. Was that a big part you brought to the script?
Yeah. I knew he was a street kid, and he
Yeah.
was just, this motor mouth street kid. So, it was just kind of like fun just writing dialogue from, kind of guys that I grew up, with, that just always had fast quips and, things like that. So it was kind of fun writing for Pinball. But we kind of wanted to balance him out, since Bone was such a stoic character, a man of few words, a strong, silent type. We needed, I needed a character to, for him to kind of like bounce out,
Yeah.
to kind of balance out, that little team. Oddly enough, this is the thing. Strangely enough, that the Pinball character was originally going to be David Carradine, because Mike had been talking to David Carradine about doing that role, and then something or other happened, and it fell out. And I think it was kind of like for the best, because David Carradine is so slow and and very
It's very
philosophical,
different.
in his approach. And then Bone was, such a man of few words. We would have had to turn Bone into, the motor mouth guy, just to kind of like balance that team out, or else,
Mm.
man, it would just been like totally
Oh,
zen whenever
I'm
we
having
would
trouble saying it. Like Michael J. White with the motor mouth. That's something different.
Yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
that would work for the character.
Well, you also worked on an Eddie Murphy film, so I can see a pattern formulating here. Uh, Look, let's bring it up. Let's talk about Dragon Ball Evolution.
Okay, all right, cool.
Let's.
Yeah,
I wanna
that's
ask
what I'm
you.
most famous for. Every time, anybody, says it, I
Are you
am
sick of
most
talking
famous
about it?
for.
Are
No,
you?
no, I
How,
don't mind. Yeah,
how
matter
do
of fact,
you?
this is actually the first time actually talking about it, other than that apology that
Yeah.
I had
So I wanted to
made
ask
that
about that.
went freaking viral. I had no idea that was going to happen.
It's
You
weird
know,
that that's what you're known for. I feel because I get it. Like it makes a good headline, but you've done so many other cool things that's why I wanted to talk about all this other stuff, because I feel like it doesn't do you justice as a filmmaker and as a screenwriter. So, can you tell us? So the way that we sort of started talking was you recently made a post on Facebook, just sort of publicly distancing yourself, trying to go on the record a bit. Can you talk to us about your relationship with this film, in terms of the apology, you sort of kind of taking it back, and where you stand with the film today, and
well,
just for everyone out
I,
there who
I
doesn't
don't.
know, let us know.
No, okay. Well, the apology anyway. The Dragon Ball Evolution came after. Sure, it came after. Was it after Luke Cage or after? No. Luke Cage led to this script called Roses Are Red, and it was an adaptation of a James Patterson novel, and which I think was probably my best work. That was the one where actually James Patterson actually called me and told me that was the best film adaptation of any of his works and stuff. And that was kind of like as a screenwriter, that was like
That's an
that
honor.
was gold. Especially it was like,
Yeah.
wow, here's a call, man. James Patterson is on the line. I was nervous as hell. And he called and just, told me that, man. And I was, oh man, I was through the. So that led to the Dragon Ball gig. They already had a script called Dragon Ball Z, but the studio and the guy that wrote it was, big Dragon Ball fan, and he knew all the lore, he knew everything. The studio said that, if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, you're not going to know what's going on in this. So they
Mm.
wanted somebody to bring somebody in that could kind of like bridge the gap from, from mainstream audience to Dragon Ball audience. So they wanted me to kind of like, like introduce the world to Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball Z franchise. And, so I poured over the material and I was like, man, there is so much. I mean, this world is so huge and so expansive. So maybe we should do an origins story. And that means to go with Dragon Ball instead of Dragon Ball Z. Problem is that in Dragon Ball, Goku's a child.
Mm.
And, so they said, well, we don't want to do a kid's movie. We want a PG-13, So, we made the decision, okay, well, let's bridge that gap, make him a teenager. And the idea was to kind of like start off in a conventional filmmaking, conventional filmmaking tropes, and then gradually start to add all the Dragon Ball elements. So by the end of the film, we would be totally immersed in the world of Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z. And then from that point, then you can go, the next film that you do can be Dragon Ball Z, and you don't have to, introduce, the people to the world. That would be almost like, like if everybody's first introduction to Star Wars was in Empire Strikes Back. People would be like, "Who's that guy?
Yeah.
What's that? Who's that? Who's
Well,
who's the Bigfoot? Who's the So you have the like. So that was the approach that
Well, I
we
think it gets
went.
deeper than that too. Like if you started at Empire, you'd be like, what's a lightsaber? What's a Jedi? And Dragon Ball has so many elements that are, because it's built up over like 1 million episodes. There's so many elements to it. Like you have to, what's a Kamehameha? What is Ki? What is a Saiyan? Like that's not even, Saiyan isn't even touched in the first one because it's not even touched on in Dragon Ball. So I can
Mhm.
really see how this is a big challenge to bring to the screen, right? So
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
your
the
logic of starting with Dragon Ball makes sense. But how do you choose what to adapt, what to leave out, that sort of stuff?
look.
I think that's a problem, right?
I went to the mangas and I went to the Search for the Dragon Ball saga. It was one
Mm.
of the earlier ones where we meet Goku, and then we meet Bulma, and then we meet Master Roshi, and we meet Yamcha, and then eventually, they collect it, and they're on a mission to collect all the Dragon Balls. And the nemesis in that was Pilaf, but they wanted Piccolo to ultimately, be the main villain. So Pilaf freed Piccolo from his, rice cooker and took they want to collect the Dragon Ball to return Piccolo to his powers, and to, resurrect Ozaru to, finish what they started and, destroy the
Mm.
planet. So that was the saga, that I chose, but I also, made some, changes in structure wise. Structure wise, we actually kind of followed Star Wars: A New Hope. It was almost that same New Hope type of structure with Yamcha coming in as the Han Solo type of character. So
Yeah.
that was that was the draft. I think I must have did about 10 different drafts of Dragon Ball, and the first ones were much closer to the source material, and each subsequent draft, the notes started to push
Mm.
it more and more into the what they all understood, what they all you know.
Yeah. Look,
Uh,
I think you had a lot of things working against you. Like even adapting Dragon Ball. Unfortunately, at the time, Dragon Ball Z is what's popular, and Dragon Ball
mm,
Z, I think, would be even harder to adapt because it essentially boils down to 20 episodes for one fight scene with a bunch of people
right.
standing watching. That'd be really hard to go into like the Hollywood model. Dragon Ball, it's more of an action adventure. This is an action
Mm.
adventure, and this was like what 2009 it came out. So I'm guessing probably took a few
Oh,
years in the cooker. Uh,
yeah, 2009 came out. I think I did turn my final draft. It was around about 2006
right.
was when I
Wow.
first
Wow.
one.
So that being said, it's like in that time period with Hollywood at the time, you look at what else is out around then, and you can see that DNA here. Like you are following the hero's journey. You are like you've got the MacGuffin. You got to go get it. Like I feel like no matter who took on this script, they would have similar challenges along the way in that period of time. So I want to say I really feel for you, man. You had a huge challenge ahead of you.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean that's eventually, what I, it kind of would maybe write what I decided to write because
mm,
I just been just for years. I just just held my tongue, didn't say anything, because you're not supposed to. That's you're not supposed to. And
mm.
don't mention any names. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus in terms of names. So that's why um, what happened when with the apology when this kid Derek Padula, who has this website called the Tao of Dragon Ball, he approached me and said, "Hey, tell me what happened with Dragon Ball Evolution." And I didn't want to get into what we're getting into right now, so I
Mm.
just said, "You know what? I think the fans deserve an apology from somebody." And I knew they weren't going to get one from the studio, And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to fall on the sword and do it for the fans because I'm a movie fan myself. More than a movie writer, I'm a fan, and I know how disappointing, that could be when they take and butcher something that you love, and they butchered it, and I'm, and anybody who says, like that movie was a piece of shit, and I'm like, I totally agree. Oh my God, dude. I
Yeah.
went to a screening, the first screening of Dragon Ball, which I was like all excited, and I'm a man. So, oh man, this is going to be the big one. This is going to be your first, 100 million. You're going to join the $100 million club with this one. So I was all excited, man. I went down to Fox for a screening, and there were like 3 people in the studio, and I was like, what's going on here? And then I watch this damn thing. I watch this abomination, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh man. And then it's over. And then the closing credits come up, and the next thing you know, your name pops up with a special effect and a sound effect. I just somebody, oh man, who wrote this shit? Ben Ramsey. I was like, oh my God, man. So anyway, when I went and apologized, I did that, like for the fans, because I knew, like, sometimes later on, like for me, that was kind of like my Alien 3 moment, because my Alien 3, I detested that movie. I detested that movie like a sickness, and the name David Fincher was curse. How could you take my favorite science fiction movie of all time, Aliens, and just butcher it and kill off all these beloved, you cruel, vicious person? And then eventually Fincher went on and did 7, and he went from being revered to God.
Yeah.
And I was like, David Fincher is God, man.
Well, he's been pretty
So I know
public
the
about.
feeling, and that's. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, well, he's also been pretty public about how he battled with the studio on that, and like that's not even a true representation of his vision at the time. So
Right.
there's a lot of parallels here, I would say.
Right. Well, that was that was the one that comes best to mind stuff. So so coming from that perspective, I knew some of the fans probably just needed maybe a little bit of closure, a little something. So I just threw myself on the sword, and said, hey, I'll take all the blame.
You're a good guy,
And
man. You're a good guy.
I didn't bring anybody else's up, but after a while, several years down the line, and it still keeps popping up. Ben Ramsey, that fucking hack writer, fucked up Drake. I'm like, man, I don't want this to be my epitaph. When I pass on, man, there's my tombstone. Here lies Ben Ramsey, the guy who fucked up Dragon Ball.
Oh my God. Wow.
So I said, you know what, I'm tired of, that last apology, that was for the fans. This one's for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote it. I'm like, I did not write that piece of shit movie. I wrote actually a pretty damn decent script. As a matter of fact, the script that I wrote attracted Stephen Chow to want to come in and direct it. And at that point, Stephen Chow had no desire to direct an American film. My script and wanted to direct an American film. So that so it wasn't a sucky script. It was a pretty damn good script, and it was a script that also respected the martial arts, and that's why I think Stephen Chow responded to it well, because a lot of the philosophy and everything that I put in was real martial art philosophy, and I practiced Tai Chi all my life. And I recognize, and, when they do the Kamehameha, they do this thing, we do call it embrace the ball
Mm.
press. That's how, it's like, Kamehameha, and that's an actual Tai Chi movement and stuff. And so I put in, and there was a scene, actually, I had a scene where Master Roshi is teaching Goku by throwing a ball. They're throwing a ball back and forth, and it was like embrace the ball, push the ball, embrace the ball, push the ball. And
The
so it was
wax on,
kind of
wax
like,
off moment. Yeah.
yeah, that was the wax on, wax off moment, leading up to what was eventually become the big Kamehameha.
Yeah.
So, that was, so all the training, everything was just all designed, for that final moment, that final battle between Goku and Piccolo, and everything that we saw beforehand. When he's training with Gohan, when he's training with Grandpa Gohan, they're actually training on plum flower poles. They weren't on a tightrope. They were training on plum flower poles and stuff, testing balance and stuff. And the key of the, philosophy of the moment was, how to get your ultimate power is to understand the balance of time. Balance being, the key in the philosophy of the whole story. And, the philosophy of time, was that, that you must live in the present stuff. You had Bulma's character who was all about the future. We had Yamcha's character who was all about past. And then who was it? And Roshi's character was all about the present. And when they were all three were threatened, and ultimately Goku saw that what each one of their friends represented, basically the balance of time, the past, present, and future exist all in one, in one state of mind and stuff. That's when he got the power to do the Kamehameha. So I just wanted to insert a little actual philosophy in it. So
Mm.
all that stuff, man, fell on deaf ears, man. It was fucking pearls before swine, man.
Was there was there any other things that you could, I know this was so long ago for you now, but is there any other elements that you were bummed out that were taken out, or any changes that upset you leading up to the release of the film? I think I read somewhere that in the original script, the Ox King was a character, and I think Krillin had a cameo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We said, we know. I knew that Krillin was a fan favorite, and the whole idea between for the first Dragon Ball movie was to set up the second one. Dragon Ball was to set up the Dragon Ball Z franchise from that point. So I said, we didn't have Krillin wasn't in the search for the Dragon Ball saga, but I said we got to get a cameo of him in there, so the people will know, okay, we're going to see Krillin.
Yeah.
So I thought that was important. The Ox King was in there, and his daughter. There was the shape shifting girl, and then there was this character named Suno, uh, who I kind of like combined her character with Mai. Who Mai was the shapeshifter. So Mai, masqueraded as Suno and infiltrated their group and threw them off. And I only threw Oolong in there. I had Puar and Oolong in there too. But one of the
Really?
things that we decided not to do was talking animals. So I was like, are we going to do talking animals? And we're like,
Yeah.
no. So Yamcha had a cat named Puar, and he had taught the cat how to steal. So wherever
Wow.
when they'd be hanging around, the cat would creep behind somebody, reach into their bag and steal their money and pass it on to Yamcha. And then Oolong, it was probably the biggest departure from the series. Oolong was actually a horrific character. Where he took the idea that he was, kidnapping the town's daughters, but he would kidnap them and then drain them of their energy. So he
Oh
made
wow.
him. So that whole scene played like a horror film.
Oh my
So,
god.
so
Oolong.
they had to,
What are you doing,
yeah,
Oolong?
yeah. I turned Oolong into a scary guy. That was
You always like
much.
that darker stuff, so I can see that.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy to me to think is like, because Dragon Ball's, it's a weird world. Like dinosaurs coexist. There are talking animals. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I can see at the time, you said it was like 2006. Of course, Hollywood's not going to allow any of that stuff in, because at the time the X-Men were wearing leather suits. That's how it was. The crazy thing to me is if it was made now, they'd be all for that stuff because they'd be like, well, Guardians of the Galaxy have a talking tree and a talking raccoon. So they'd be like, quick, put Oolong on the poster. They'd want Pilar, they'd want everybody. So it's like today's state of cinema is really different. In fact, being accurate to the source material is highly encouraged. Like we just had the Mortal Kombat film with, as many flaws as it has, you can't say it's not accurate to the source material because those costumes are like down to a T.
Yeah, they had it down. I like the animated Mortal Kombat. What was that called? The animated
Scorpion's Revenge, the new one.
Yeah, Scorpion's Revenge. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but at the time of recording, there's a new trailer for a second one that just came out.
Oh no shit! Oh.
I saw it like maybe an hour before we started recording. So after this, check it out. I think it comes out really soon, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But back to Dragon Ball though. I want to say, man, let's play a little like experiment, a little thought game. What if for some reason you had it now, and you could start fresh? What would you?
What would start fresh?
What would you do? What would you? Just spitballing. What would you do? What would you want to adapt the most? What would you not want to touch?
Oh, in terms of Dragon Ball?
Dragon Ball Z either. Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. I would have done the script that I originally written, and I would have hired Stephen Chow to direct it. You'd have had a hit fucking movie. It was like, it was like I did it. I did exactly what they wanted to do. I started it off from a position of, okay, everybody can relate. If you don't know anything about Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, you can, relate to this story. And then through the course of it, I started to add more and more elements, started to get more and more fantastical. And the normal Hollywood tropes faded out, and more Dragon Ball tropes came in and stuff. I mean, the earlier drafts of Dragon Ball were written, pretty much as well as I could have done it. Now, who knows? There were probably might have been some, some writers who could, done an even better job at it. But I think what it was is that, the fact that, my distance, sometimes when you're so close to something, you start to add all these elements that you understand, but you don't, people that aren't familiar with the story, they won't understand. So, that's always the big task. And you could make a fan film, you could make a fan favorite film, but that's not necessarily going to be the biggest money maker in Hollywood. And the sad truth of the matter is that the average casual moviegoers fuel Hollywood movies more than the hardcore fans do. And that's
true.
That is the, they're like, hey, what are we gonna do this weekend? Let's go see a movie. What's playing? Oh, this just Dragon Ball thing looks fun. Let's go see that. And that's the bulk of your movie going audience and stuff.
Hmm.
You know, and they say, "Oh, that was fun. What are we gonna do now? Okay, well, let's go get some dinner." You know, but the people that come in and watch it, the fans, you know, they go in there and say, I think they did the costume wrong, and I think they did, you know, that's not, you know, that's a smaller audience
Yeah.
than the general movie going audience. So, you
It's
know,
funny
from
because
that
that smaller
perspective,
audience online is the loudest though. So
yeah, they're the
it's this
loudest,
balancing
and
act you got to juggle.
this is the thing too, why it's always important and crucial to satisfy that audience because they are your biggest promoters. They're your biggest
Mm.
detractors and your biggest promoters. You know, they're the guys that will be online talking about it constantly, you know, and especially in this day of algorithms and stuff, you know, they're going to keep on fueling your product, whether they're talking about it good or bad. You know, they're the
Mm.
ones that keep it alive. They're the ones that go out and buy the um, the action figures and all the ancillary stuff. You know, so you gotta be when you start shitting on your fans, then you know it's not smart business. You know, in my opinion, you're shooting yourself in the foot doing
Well,
that. You know,
well, that's the
so
thing. I think.
you
Oh,
gotta have that balance. You know?
yeah. Well, that's why I think Marvel Studios disrupted the whole industry because they were like
Yeah.
they were the guys who showed everyone you can have your cake and eat it too. Like
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, Hollywood were trying to just appeal the mainstream audience. They were trying to water the source material down. They didn't take it seriously, and then Marvel were like, well, what if we focused on that's making that small group happy while still also being accessible to a mainstream audience, and they somehow managed to find this formula which is
Their
still
formula
works.
is brilliant.
Yeah, and
Marvel's
a lot of people
formula
have trouble
is
copying
excellent.
it.
Yeah, because they don't get it. They're not fans. The reason why is that they're not fans of the source material. So
Mm,
they're copying Marvel without really getting it and stuff. And that's the thing. Kevin Feige and all people that surround their fans, they know what's going to work. And they have all these, you know, this wealth of source material to pull from.
yeah.
So you know, at the end of was it the I forget I think was it the Hulk or Iron Man? No, it was the Iron Man when Luke Cage shows up and starts talking about the
Nick Fury,
Avenger
you mean?
Initiative. That was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that was so brilliant. Planting seeds and stuff, and then watching them grow, and they keep on doing that, and it's like, you know, and somewhere along the line, you know, people aren't getting that. You know, they're not fully understanding the formula. You know, like well, we're going to do like Marvel,
But
you
you know
know,
what's
like the Rush
crazy?
to Justice League.
Uh,
You know,
yeah. Oh yeah. God. But you know what? It's funny to tie into something you said like literally just 5-10 minutes ago. You were saying with Dragon Ball, you'd want to start very Hollywood, and then get more Dragon Ball as you go, and then eventually you lose that typical Hollywood formula, and then it's more Dragon Ball. Well, that's what Marvel
mm-hmm.
did. Like the first Iron Man movie, half of it is him just trying to build the suit. It's just him. It's trying to
Exactly.
justify this world. And now, like we can have entire movies placed on other planets, and nothing's based in reality, and we're still invested. It's because they trained their audience to be used to all this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah, exactly.
it's genius.
Yeah, yeah. That's the. I mean, that's the. You know, I mean, that's a brilliant approach. You know, and that's what I you know tried to do with Dragon Ball, and you know, they didn't. You know, they didn't get it. You know, there was somewhere along the line a whole bunch of people came with a whole bunch of ideas, you know, and started overthinking the whole process and stuff. And then they
Mm,
turned it into a kids because they didn't understand what they were seeing, and they just turned it into a you know freaking kids movie. Everybody was a comedian, you know.
yeah.
It was, you know, everybody was trying to be funny and stuff, and you know, and then you didn't understand why people were doing. You know, it was like what do you know? What the fuck does Piccolo need with Dragon Ball for when the guy can just clear out a whole lake and shit, by himself? The dude is already a beast, man. You
Yeah.
know? And I
Uh,
was like, I'm gonna sum up in my story, Piccolo wanted the Dragon Ball so he could return to power. There was a purpose behind it and stuff. Nothing made fucking sense. And that was that was that was my problem with it, man. I'm like, geez, man, come on. This shit should have brought me down to the set. I don't know. If they brought me to the set, I might cause trouble.
that's all right.
They might
Well,
have booted me off the set.
you're yelling at everybody, I can imagine. Look, speaking of sci-fi, I'd love to move on to just one more project. But before I do, is there any last thing you'd like to say about Dragon Ball Evolution? Anything you just want to get out there on the record, or anything we might have glossed over?
Well, I think I pretty much said it all, and like once again, like to all the fans that were so disappointed, man. I'm so sorry, that you got your dreams and aspirations shattered and stuff, man. I tried, I genuinely tried, but but at the same time, man, I'm no longer gonna say, oh, it was all my fault. No, fuck that. It wasn't my fault
Yeah.
at all.
Your script
So
got put through the system. A
yeah,
lot of other people had their hands in it.
it went through the
You
ringers
didn't
and
direct it.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the thing
Okay.
is
Well,
that after Dragon, I got a whole
yeah.
bunch of other work based
Yeah.
on that script. So everybody, I tell, so well, the script is great. Here, come write this. So I was working for years after Dragon Ball. After the Dragon Ball script. So
Hmm.
anyway, let's put that aside. We
Well,
can
let's
talk
talk about
about.
something. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Interface, something you have had a lot of control in, or a lot of input in. From my understanding, so I've seen the short film, which is available now to rent or buy on Vimeo on demand. Did I get that right? I
Mhm.
think that's right. Yep.
Yes, yes.
But from my understanding, it's also a comic and a TV series in the works or something. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, interface is just not. This is like total control. This is my,
It's
like
your
right
baby.
now I'm in a state of semi-retirement where I work on what I want to work on when I want to work on, and do it the way I want to do it. And so interface was just this idea that came from with my friend Arnold Shawn. I guess it's probably about 7 years ago. Said, hey man, I want to shoot a fight scene, kind of like a sci-fi fight scene, and and I want you to direct it. And I was like, okay, well, let's fasten a little story behind it. And the idea was like this person puts this thing on their arms, and they have super. Um, but I just said, let's take it a step forward. Is that the thing, takes them into a virtual world, and they're kind of like inside of a game, and they have the powers inside of a video game, and then it just started expanding from there, just like okay, what's it called? Just what is that called? You just get a whole rush of ideas and stuff,
Like an
and it started to build into this my idea about sci-fi dystopian sci-fi story that was just like really massive in scale, and that it involved three different sci-fi tropes. That is cyberpunk, Orwellian, dystopian, and utopian, which I'm kind of like, and I haven't done the a utopian storyline, but we hint at it in the script that I wrote, and it's kind of like a technical techno spiritual society.
techno
Yeah,
spiritual
uh,
society. Okay.
yeah. Kind of like based all in the world like quantum physics and stuff, and this concept of like divine numerology and shit like that. You know. And then you have a middle society, which keeps everything running, and that's the Orwellian. That's where the workers were. And then you have your cyberpunk society, where this story kind of takes place. Then that's where the crime is, and ultimately, it's a society where everybody is implanted with with a a neural implant in their brain, where you can, for a certain price, for a subscription fee, jack into this thing called the interface. And within the interface, you could live a perfect world that you want. It's a perfect society, like The Sims, but you have to work and make some money to keep paying your subscription rates and stuff. But now in the underworld, they learned how to jailbreak those brain chips, and they sell illegal hacks where you can do all kind of crazy, lascivious things and stuff. You can, have murder fantasies, serial killer fantasies, crazy sex fantasies. And one of the most popular ones are the fight fantasies, because you have a society of people that feel powerless, and they love to jack into these worlds where they can, fight and be invincible and stuff. But they're illegal, and you have to be able to jailbreak the smart cell to be able to jack into these worlds. So it's kind of like I described it to people the cyberpunk story. It's kind of like, the Wire, Blade Runner meets the Wire to a certain degree, because it's kind of like the drug crime lords and everything like that, but the drugs they're selling are brain hacks and stuff. And then it gets much deeper than that.
Yeah.
I can't even get into how much.
Well, there's still a big focus on, from what I can see, still got a big focus on like the martial arts and action and stuff. Like in the short film, for those who haven't seen it, there's an incredible sequence in a warehouse where they're kind of a bit silhouetted out. It's very stylized, and it looks like there's literally 100 dudes in like hoodies and stuff. This guy's just fighting, and it's this awesome shot of like just panning over all these opponents, and he runs at them. And the martial arts is insane. You've got this really great sequence where it's like, I wouldn't say it's a one take, but they're very long takes where dudes are doing like triple backflips and all crazy stuff, man.
That was what we went in. I said, what we did in Blood and Bone, let's double down on that. Let's do extra long techniques with 10, 15, 20, 30 techniques within one take. And then we had a kid that could do that.
He was incredible. Who was that? What was his name?
Trevor.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Oh my God!
I'll pull it up. I'll find it on IMDb.
Yeah. Trevor. Oh my God! I'm gonna be so mad.
It's all right. Move on. I'll find it.
Okay.
I'll bring it back up.
Yeah. But man, the dude is just he's just phenomenal. And everybody, all these are guys that trained under Arnold, and he just put a call in, and they showed up and worked for us for absolutely nothing.
Trevor Logan.
Trevor Logan. Sorry, Trevor. I'm sorry, dude.
Incredible work, Trevor. Man. Incredible work.
I was getting ready to say Logan, and I was like, but I'm thinking Logan Paul. The Pauls. But
I caught you off guard. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But that was. But the thing about what I am having so much fun with Interface is that most of the movie I shot in my living room on green screen, and probably 75% of the visual effects in it I did myself. I had to teach myself visual effects to do.
What are you using, like After Effects or?
Yeah. Mostly After Effects and a little bit of Cinema 4D and a little bit of Blender.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, YouTube tutorials, man. You know, and that's
That's
why
where
it
it's
took so
at.
long.
We've got so
Yeah,
much information out there. It's amazing what you can just get for free and learn online.
oh man, I'm telling you, man. And it was a bit of unfortunate story because we started out some of the coolest visual effects were done by a guy named Just Bryden. Um, and he liked the story, and so he just donated some visual effects to me for free. And I was like, "Oh, dude, thanks, man." But then he just like raised the bar, so I was like, "Oh shit," you know. And then he got busy, and then sadly he wound up getting cancer and passing on.
Oh,
Rest in peace, Jess.
rest in peace.
But after he, had set it up, it was like, man, I gotta, I have to finish what he started. So, I didn't have working out of pocket, not, no financing, because I know as soon as you get financing, then you got people trying, to get in and start telling you what you want to do. And this whole thing was like, let's do what we wanted to do the way we want to do it. So yeah, that's why I wound up, taking so long. And pretty much eventually, to the point where I want to take and then spin off the entire storyline. The TV series, video games, the comic books. We had two comic books that are available online that you could read. That was going to be like a 12-part series eventually,
Cool.
and ultimately MMORPG that basically encompasses that's almost exactly the world that we're
Like the
creating,
interface.
in the thing. So, whatever happens and stuff at this stage of the game, I'm still just kind of like putting together, just creating the world and just doling out a little taste now and then. So I hope you can, go to, and rent it and stuff, help out a little bit.
That's incredible. Well, for anyone wanting to check out Interface, where's the best place to go to check it out? The comics,
Well,
the short film, everything.
well, you can go to the website, and the website is it's hold
It's like
so lame. It's www dot theinterface dot tv. www.theinterface.tv. And then you can
.tv.
see the comics are there, and then the links to the video, the IMDb, the Patreon. I got to do more with the Patreon. We started it and just kind of fell off. And then
Patreon's where it's at,
there's
man. Get on that. That is as the lifeblood of our podcast, and our
oh
fans that
yeah.
are subscribed, they love it. It is a little bit of work to get like the bonus stuff to do it, but they're paying for it, so it's worth it. Highly
Nice,
recommend.
nice.
Highly
Okay,
recommend it.
well, that's on the agenda. That's on the to-do list. I've been messing around with TikTok lately. It's fucking addictive. Oh
TikTok
shit.
is insane. I've been playing around with it myself, and it's amazing how it's just completely disrupted social media. Because every other social media is I post something and my friends see it, but TikTok is I post something and everybody sees it, and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
like
yeah,
it, and more
exactly.
people see. So there's so much potential to go like viral. Like I've started up a YouTube channel myself where I do like comedy sketches, and
Hmm.
I'm pretty early days with it. So, I'm lucky if I get 1,000 views on something. Like that's a big deal for me right now.
Oh man, well look
But
me up,
but
man,
on
and
but on
follow
TikTok,
me, and I'll follow you back, man.
oh, let's be friends. I like that. But yeah, on
Yeah,
TikTok, it's not that hard to hit 500, 1,000 views in a day. If the
yes.
content's good, people love it. I think the future is TikTok, which I know every like not person under over the age of 18 just cringed when I say TikTok's the future, but at this rate, it is. That and Instagram Reels, they, it's crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, I spend very little time on Instagram. Matter of fact, everything that I post on Instagram comes from TikTok. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been if you go to my TikTok, I've been doling out little bits of interface on that. So as a matter of fact, it's called Ben Ramsey's Interface on TikTok. And then I post a lot of other clips from other movies that I like, just kind of like, oh, this is cool, check this out. So it's kind of
Mm.
like like cool video clips, mostly focused on sci-fi, action, cyberpunk, stuff like that. Yeah,
Well,
some other
before
fun
we
things.
before we wrap things up, yeah, and we'll get to those plugs later. We'll say it at the end. Um, there's one more project I saw in your IMDb that stood out to me, and I was kind of surprised by it. In the early days, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but according to IMDb, you were a production assistant on Silence of the Lambs. Is that right?
I was,
What
yes, I
was that
was.
like? That's
Oh, it
cool.
was like fucking. It was pretty surreal in retrospect. At the time, it was just a job. I was a PA, but I mean, there were so many moments that I remember chatting with Anthony Hopkins. Was coming up the elevator chat. He was such the coolest dude, man, and the dude could turn it on and off. Like there was like Hannibal Lecter. He would literally it'd be like, okay, action. And he would be Hannibal Lecter. He'd say cut. He'd
Wow.
be like, okay, are we good? All right, going down to craft service. Talk with you later. He just turned it on and off like that. There was no, okay, I have to get into a method. I got to get into character. And I got to watch. I was in a room when they shot that scene with him and Jodie Foster, where he's saying, you wake up in the middle of the night to the screaming of the lambs, don't you, Clarice? And and I sat there just watching that, like mesmerized, man. I
Mm.
was like, it was so good. And it was funny because afterwards, that whole story that Clarice was, telling about her grabbing the lamb and running off, we were scheduled to go shoot that scene with the young Clarice actor. After they shot that, it was like I saw Jonathan and the producers talking. They were like, no, we are not going to cover that up. We are not going. That's just going to be performance and stuff. It was so good. But yeah, that was quite a interesting experience, man. Working on Silence of the Lambs, and something that ultimately became historical.
That's awesome.
A very cool set too, man. And Jonathan Demme was, man, rest in peace. He was so cool because the set was so just open. The stars ate with the crew, with the extras. Everybody, ate together. And like I remember my first day there, I'm sitting down eating lunch, and Jonathan Demme sits down right next to me and starts chatting with me and stuff.
So
And
cool.
yeah, that was a great experience. Never didn't talk much to Jodie Foster, but I talked to Anthony Hopkins several times, a few times. Very cool, very fun guy, man. Who else? What else was? Oh man, but yeah,
I'm
yeah,
taking
that
you down
was
memory lane. I feel, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
That was all it. Sounds like it.
thanks for sharing that with us. I knew I was just really pulling it out of the hat there. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. I do realize we are way over time, but
Oh,
I was just having
sorry.
so much fun with you. I hope you're not late for anything because of me.
No, no,
But
no. All I do is just that right there. I'm still working on interface. So
on
right behind
interface,
me. Yeah,
uh,
that's all I do.
how's it
Matter of
going at the
fact, when
moment? Do you got any updates to share with us about what's happening with the interface?
so right now I'm just I'm working on a new action sequence uh, because there's one action sequence in the middle that I was just kind of like with our female character Lenora Creek that I'm not as happy with and I wanted to kind of like revamp and make it a much bigger, more epic sequence with flying cars and explosions and
Mm.
crowds running and getting blown. I want to make this really big, epic action sequence. So I'm kind of like working on that right now.
That's the grind, man. That's the grind. Good work. Keep at it. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. I've had such a fun time chatting with you, man. This has been such a great interview. Thank you for
Oh man,
taking
thanks
time
for
out of your day
having me.
with us. Before we go, if people want to find you, where's the best place to go? TikTok,
Uh,
Instagram, what?
yeah.
Facebook?
TikTok at Ben Ramsey's interface. Um, Instagram at Ben Ramsey's Interface TV. That's it. At Ben Ramsey's Interface TV. YouTube. Dot Ben Ramsey's Interface. It was a friend of mine told me, he said, "Man, put your name in front of it and stuff. Your name has more
Hey, that's cool. It's
recognition
yours.
than the title." So,
It's yours. Own
and
it.
then of course there's the website, and that's www.theinterface.tv, and then you can check it out and read the comic books and all that good stuff. See
That's
what's going
awesome.
on. And next time we talk, I'll see if I can get that Patreon up and running.
All right, I'll hold you to that. You guys, you heard it here first. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it.
All
No,
right,
I'll
man.
chase him after that. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and that's an interview. Laters.
All right.
Cool.
So
All right,
long, everybody.
I'll just stop. Oh, sorry. Bye. I'll
Okay.
just stop recording now. Thank you so
Okay.
much for today. Stop recording.